Hi there, welcome back to Relationships Rebuilt. I have a special question for you today. Have you ever felt like you're walking on eggshells around your partner's anger? Because if you have, you're not alone in this. Because many women face this daily toxic anger, often feeling overwhelmed, unsafe, and pretty unsure of how to manage these really intense emotional situations while protecting themselves, their peace, and their safety. And that is what I'm here to change. Because male anger, if left unchecked, can consume a relationship. Research even shows that unresolved conflicts like this contribute to over 60% of divorces. That emotional toll, especially for women, can lead to anxiety, depression, and declining physical health. So there is good news, though. There are many ways to actually navigate this pretty toxic dynamic. And so today I'm diving into practical strategies that will help you deal with an angry male partner with healthy communication and boundaries while you still feel safe and secure. This process is not about fixing them. It's about equipping you to protect your emotional well-being while creating space for way healthier interactions. And that's something you need. Okay, it will carry you through some very tricky situations, diffusing them and avoiding your feeling unhealthy. Now, before I start, don't forget it's just part one of this series, The Modern Woman's Playbook for Navigating Toxic Anger in Relationships. And that being said, I'm going to dive into part one of the process. And that is called damage control. Yeah, damage control. What do you actually do in the moment when his anger flares up? And one of the most effective techniques is learning how to stay calm and neutral. It's also one of the most difficult. Because when your partner is being angry, your reacting emotionally will often escalate the conflict. Okay, the male ego can quite often, make a most simple reaction into something that is really going to flare up and be rather unpleasant. So you need to stay calm and neutral. And that means that when he's angry, you aim to acknowledge his feelings, but without agreeing or arguing. Okay, I have certain scripts that I use in my practice. And a simple phrase you can use is just say, look, I can see this really matters to you. Can we take a moment to calm down and just and revisit this? These can lead from the smallest things, a male who snaps about something small like the groceries aren't right. And, you may be tempted to say, look, you're overreacting, for God's sake, I thought that I was doing the right thing. I did all this shopping and you haven't said thank you. And let's be honest, you've thought about this before. But instead try something like, I hear you. What is really at the bottom of this? What's bothering you to make you this angry? Use this tone, the same tone I'm using here. Tone is everything. Keep it calm, keep it measured, and keep it targeted to the problem. And avoid sarcasm, even if it's your go-to defense mechanism, and try not to shout back. Because, sarcasm will be like throwing gasoline onto a fire. Right. So if he is raising his voice, which again, I'm not justifying, there is no cause for making you feel frightened. I'm trying in this video to give you guidance as to how to diffuse. You just need to say calmly, why are you yelling at me again? Why? Yeah, I can see you're upset, but you really don't need to shout. So I need to retreat and talk when things can be calmer. Just even a small, tiny shift can de-escalate the situation and make communication safer. But always know that if you feel unsafe or completely overwhelmed, step away. Quickly create a space, tell them why you're doing it, and say, I'm not avoiding it. I just want to make this conflict into something that's constructive for us both. It does work. It takes practice. But to do that, you need to recognize and avoid what's going to trigger it. Okay, triggers are just emotional landmines. They're things that set off emotions like anger in ways that can feel really unexpected and really overblown. So understanding these both for you, because you'll probably have them too, and your partner is key to trying to get in front of the conflict before it starts. Check his patterns. Do arguments arise from certain topics? Is it money? Is it his work? Is it parenting? There are any number of issues that probably, if you take a note, you'll realize that they're causing constant flashpoints. So approach those areas carefully. All right. So if you're saying to him, look, he's always late, it's frustrating, you're trying to deal with work and picking up kids too. You can say, how's your work going this week? Can I work with anything? Because we need to work out a schedule. Keep the conversation supportive and not accusatory, because he'll know that his behavior has not been right. But you need to take I wouldn't call it high road. I think it's a practical road, because it protects your own triggers. Maybe you have a past experience of being yelled at by a parent or past partner, and that can bring up strong emotions. So if you recognize that's triggering you, you can respond way more intentionally. Right? And you can then state really what you need from a conversation in order to deal with it. Try journaling. It can be tiresome, but if you write it down after arguments and think about what was said, what set you off? What could you have done to handle a situation differently? You'll see patterns that will allow you to kind of have a roadmap to approach future situations more effectively. And just remember, triggers are often tied to past hurts. It can be his, it could be yours. And recognizing that can help you navigate the conversation with empathy, and you can get to the why more quickly. You can't do that without communication and timing. When do you actually bring the subjects up? Communication it's more than just words. It's about timing and delivery. So say if you've got your journal in place, certain issues, maybe finance or work or whatever, are the principal triggers. You have to choose your time. So really, right after work is probably not going to be a good time, right? It's not going to be a good time to deal with the stress of the day and then unload on that situation. You have to look for a neutral, calm time. So just be upfront and just say, listen, I'd really like to talk about something important, and we need to find a good time. So what might work from you? Because that sends out a signal to him that you've respected and seen him. His respect for mental state. And a lot of men struggle with not being seen emotionally, because we're supposed to be the tough guys. We're supposed to just cope. And really, a lot of men just need to be able to unload emotionally. And, that's just fact. It sets a respect for the mental state and sets the stage for a better dialogue. And on this point, I always talk about Dr. John Gottman's research, who talks about a soft startup for conversations. He's a divorce expert, marriage expert, and he shows that conversations that begin gently are more likely to end positively. So, for example, if you compare, why do you always lose your temper? As opposed to saying to him, well, I know this subject's come up before. I noticed we're arguing about it more recently. So can we just take some time to figure out what's going on together? It reduces the scale and the temperature of the conversation right out the gate. And so, if these conversations start to derail, just pause and say something like that, and just say, look, there must be something else. We're getting off track. Let's take a break and let's just dive into it a bit later. Right? Focus on resolution, not reactivity. That tends to keep male anger at a minimum. They're being seen by you, they feel safe, and they will address the underlying issues. And that's what the point 4 is. That's the thing about anger. It's almost never about what's happening in the moment. It's usually about something way deeper. Sometimes, his anger might stem from work stress. It may be unresolved trauma from childhood, lack of emotional needs being met. And, it's not necessarily your responsibility to fix these things. But where you will be able to negotiate the anger more clearly and safely is to say, okay, let's explore them. What is behind all this? Let's try and understand why you feel these feelings. Because most men, when they get that, they're putty in your hands. Doesn't matter how angry or macho they try to be. Underneath, there's something that's able to come out, which is why this dated male mental health is so poor at this moment. Okay, they're just not being dealt with. So you have that ability to control. You want to avoid being in a relationship that's going to leave you drained and anxious and questioning self-worth. Remember, underlying issues, his and yours, are like weeds. If you don't address and pull out the root, they'll keep coming back. So try and work together to uncover what those things are. Now, point 5, okay, a technique which is so important in relationships and life, is about setting boundaries. And boundaries are not about controlling him. Controlling is about protecting you and your emotional well-being. If you're not feeling safe and it's a recurring issue with shouting, you literally just have to say, I can't have that productive conversation if you're going to shout at me. I need to step away until we can talk calmly. Okay. Again, same technique, pause and pivot, explain why you're walking away, set a time to talk about it again. It really narrows the scope of the discussion. All right. And his anger, you want maybe to keep going, but you just have to say, listen, we'll set a time and we can revisit it. And those boundaries have to apply to yourself as well, because really you may be taking the load of all the emotional baggage. So, don't just be the only one to try and resolve these things. You have to make it very, very clear to him that he has a role to play too. And there's a golden rule of boundaries, which is consistency. If you set a boundary, each and every time you need to follow it to the letter, because they lose their power if you don't enforce them, right? Those boundaries are saying to yourself, I value myself and I value this relationship enough that I want it to be healthy. So we've covered a fair bit of ground. It's a very detailed subject, and there'll be more videos in the series to deal with certain aspects of male anger, but it's hard, but it's not hopeless. And every small step you take is actually going forward. It may not seem it, but if you apply any of these techniques that I was explained today, you'll find that there's some progress. So I've got a challenge for you, which is to pick a strategy from today, whether it's recognizing triggers, setting a boundary. Give it a try this week if it occurs, and let me know how it goes in the comments. Well, thanks for watching this video, and in the next video, I'm going to dive deeper into understanding why anger shows up in this way in relationships. Again, it often goes back to those roots that are still in the ground, like stress, unmet needs, past traumas, and maybe issues thrown to you that have not been spoken. Right. So if you found this video helpful, please like, hit the bell and subscribe, and check out the next video in this series, The Modern Woman's Playbook for Navigating Toxic Anger in Relationships. I want you to be strong, I want you to be safe, and I want you to be happy. And you're not alone in this journey, so I'll see you in the next video.